Welcome to the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. I'm Luke Swetland, President and CEO, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of this extraordinary institution. You've just walked into the historic courtyard of Santa Barbara's first museum. This institution was founded in 1916 by a fellow named William Leon Dawson, who arrived in Santa Barbara to write the definitive field guide to the birds of California. Now, Dawson assembled a group of like-minded community leaders and said, we need to develop a museum. But Dawson believed it should be a museum devoted exclusively to the study of birds, their nests, and their eggs, because Dawson had a belief that you could unravel the entire history of life on Earth by studying bird eggs. In 1922, Carolyn Hazard, who owned a vast estate here in Mission Canyon, donated the land to start this museum, and her sister, Mary, donated the funds to build this first set of buildings. So Dawson and his friends start the museum in 1916. Pretty quickly, the Board of Trustees says, you know, William, we need to really branch out beyond just birds. They had a parting of the ways, and Dawson leaves in 1922. And the next director, Ralph Hoffman, then starts the remarkable explosion of this museum in terms of the scope of what it began to do. We hired an anthropologist and created our first professional department of anthropology. A couple years later, the Gould family very generously donated the funds to build Gould Hall, where we tell the story of the Chumash people who were here before us. The buildings and the collections and the staff just kept growing after that. Max Fleischmann and Carolyn Hazard decided we needed a Mammal Hall because every first-class museum of natural history had a Mammal Hall. So they put together the funds, the people, and the specimens to create our Mammal Hall. Then Max said, we need a bird hall. No, we need a library. And it just kept going on and on. This museum has a dozen galleries and covers every area of the natural sciences: birds, mammals, rocks and minerals, botany, marine life, paleontology, and anthropology. So we have a planetarium, a 35-seat planetarium, the only one of its kind between San Francisco and Los Angeles. We have an observatory with a research-grade telescope that's so powerful you can see objects as clear as day in the middle of the day. That's quite extraordinary. The amazing thing about the museum is when you walk into it, it just opens up magically. We sit on a 17-acre campus, and the most extraordinary exhibit we have is not the one that's inside any one of our galleries, but it's what's outside when we go behind these buildings. Mission Creek and a 5-acre oak woodland. That's the real exhibit here. There's a number of things that make the Museum of Natural History here in Santa Barbara truly unique. But the most important one is the fact that we're unlike any other natural history museum in this country. Think of all the great museums: the LA County Museum of Natural History, the American Museum in New York, the Smithsonian, natural history museums that sit in the middle of concrete. Here in Santa Barbara, your Museum of Natural History sits in the middle of an oak woodland with a creek running through it. That makes us so totally unique. We are sitting in the very thing we exist to interpret. And so everything we try to do here is to get our visitors to get outside and re-engage with nature. We have a variety of things that help our youngest visitors get comfortable with the idea of being outside in nature. So we have an artificial creek. So for the kids that are a little afraid to climb in the real creek, they can get their hands wet right here, and it's safe. We have a mulch pile that they can dig in. In this clubhouse, we have all sorts of critters that live right here on the grounds. So we want to get kids comfortable with those critters, and then they can go out and find them themselves. So we'll give them little kits, binoculars, spy glasses, all sorts of things to go collect bugs in order to have an experience as a scientist themselves. We also have a really fascinating partnership with Santa Barbara Audubon. So the Eyes in the Sky program, these are owls and hawks that have been rescued from the wild. Their injuries are such that they can never be released back into the wild. So they're going to live the rest of their lives here. But every day they come out as ambassadors of some of the most amazing birds on the planet. We have great horned owls, screech owls, peregrine falcons, kestrels. They all live here, and they're all here to interact with our visitors. You get to see a hawk this close, and there's no bars, there's no cage between you and these extraordinary animals. Now, why is all this so important? It's dreadfully important. Most kids today are growing up without being in nature, and playing soccer is not having an experience with nature. In fact, 95% of California's population lives in an urban area. So that means kids don't know what this is. They can't identify trees or birds. They're afraid of nature. So this space, our backyard, I call it kind of our halfway house to nature. Young people can come here, they can get comfortable with the outdoors, and then when they're ready, this is their base camp for exploration. Every day, I hear kids screaming, crying when they're here. Not because their parents are bringing them back here, but because their parents are telling them it's time to go home. Kids don't want to leave here. And we've had many, many school kids say, this is the best field trip I've ever had. So that all happens right here in our backyard. And we know that if we can make a young person curious, feel fascinated by nature, want to get their feet wet and their hands dirty, we've got them for life. And they're going to go home and they're going to look at their own backyard differently. Because here at the Museum of Natural History, we never say don't climb on the rocks, don't climb in the trees. We never say be quiet. We never say indoor voice. We want kids of all ages to laugh, yell, scream, jump for joy, get their feet wet, get their hands dirty. It's what makes us truly unique among natural history museums in this country. It's what makes us very unique here in Santa Barbara. We are very naturally different. We are the unmuseum museum, if you will. One of the things we have here at the museum, and we'll see it another day, is a collections and research division. We have collections numbering in excess of 3.5 million objects. And because of new analytical techniques that have been developed, scientists can come to our collection. They can take small pieces of the membrane from inside bird eggs that we have in our collection that date back 150 years, and they can do methods of analysis that tell us what those birds were eating, what was the chemical composition of their diet. They can do all sorts of things that truly do help scientists understand the evolution of life on Earth. So at the end of the day, 100 years later, Dawson is being proved correct. What we want everyone to do, everyone that was here when they were in 6th grade, we want you to come back. We want you to realize this place is much more than just a little red button you push on a rattlesnake exhibit. It's all of this wonderful nature and all these great exhibits and programs and science and ways that you can get engaged at your own pace with all of this. So welcome back, Santa Barbara.